In this video, we're going to take a look at the optional site components that can be added with Autodesk Revit from the Activity 213 Utility Shed Design Part 2. So in this particular case, last video we were looking at some of the interior walls, adding different components, furniture, things of that nature that can be added. And this time we're going to look at using some site components. So if you go over to your floor plans in the project browser, double click on site, and I'm going to move to the massing and site tab. Here we're going to create a topo surface, and this is creating a lot of the terrain and things like that. We're able to define a topo surface as noted by the tooltip by picking different points, specifying elevations, and then you can also import 3D data or a points file. But I'm going to click, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a point. So I'm going to click and set just 4 points here. Once I get 3, a triangle will form, and then once I have a 4th, we'll end up having a site there. So I'm going to go ahead right now, the elevation set at 0 feet 0 inches. We're going to be coming back to that here in a second, and I'm just going to hit the green check mark. Just do a simple basic topo surface. So what we end up having now, though, is we've got dirt. It's kind of the default, but the issue is it's on the same level as our floor. So it's kind of competing with our floor in that case, and the floor, if we look underneath, is actually underneath what would be the ground. So not really quite what we want in this scenario. So what we need to do is I'm going to select our topo surface. I'm going to say edit surface, and in order to do that, I'm going to select the corner, and I'm going to hold control, select the next 3 corners, so that way all 4 will be selected. So they'll all be kind of highlighted in a blue. And then under the elevation, I'm going to do a -10 3/4 of an inch, which is the thickness of our floor. When I hit enter, you should go through and be able to see, or when I click out of that, we will be able to go through and see what we have there. So looks like I do need to hold control. Let me select all 4 of these again. So it bumped it up. So the negative has to go before the 0 feet. There we go. Now we're seeing our floor properly as we should based upon the elevation. Once I'm done with that, I can just click out of the elevation option and click the green check mark. So this is one way we can go through and add a surface. We can go back to the site plan. If we need to change any of the points, we can always edit the surface. We can always drag more of the points. If we need more surface to be shown, we can do some of that. Some of the other things that can be done is that as you place points, so if you choose the place point option, and let's say we change the elevation to a 5 foot. So as you continue to kind of add different points around, you're going to see some of this will end up, so if I hit the green check mark, so right now this is built up based upon those 4 points. Everything connects up, mounds up to where 5 foot is, so it automatically connects. So this is at 5 foot, the 4 points that I clicked on, and that's why this is kind of changed there. But that's exactly kind of how the topography gets generated within Revit. So the areas that are closer end up, you get flatter surfaces, and then the closer that the points are together, the steeper the lines that you end up seeing. So if you go back to the site plan, you see these lines, the closer they are means the steeper it is. This up here, you don't see very many flat, this is flat on top, and that's kind of what we see. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit the surface. I'm going to select these points, and I'm going to hit delete, the ones that I had put in there under the 5 foot elevation. Because, again, I was just doing that just to show kind of how that is created. So if you're ever interested in creating your own site plans or modifying site plans, that's how you can go through and kind of make that happen. All right, so one thing we'll do is I'm going to select this material by category. If I click in by category, the ellipse, we are going to add a new material in there. So we're going to do grass. So grass is not in our particular case. So what I'm going to end up looking for in this scenario is I'm going to come down here to the bottom and I'm going to say create new material. Our new material, if I go to the identity tab, default new material, we're going to name this grass. Description, and we'll say site plan grass. And then under the class, maybe we want to go through and we want to see what kind of category really best kind of fits that. I would probably say earth in this case, looking at our different options. So that's just how to filter out different ones. So earth is really what the brown looks like, the dirt. So for the graphics, our pattern, we can go through and see there are some various patterns that we could use. So earth is one of those, and you can see some of the different surface patterns that you end up having and things like that. Again, this is for when we do shaded. So as you take a look and try to see some of that, I think I'm going to choose the earth option. As far as the color, we can choose like a greenish color for the shading, and that'll go through and put that in. When I take a look at appearance, this is one where I can open up the asset browser. So the asset browser, expand the appearance library, and from here I want to look at site work. So site work, when I look through here, there's some different grass options that have, for example, high quality grass, Bermuda, there's a lot of different types of, there's bluegrass and things like that involved. I think I'm going to do grass generic, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch that out into for our appearance. So as we take a look at that, you could also end up for the shading, you could use the render appearance, which would be this appearance right here. But other than that, that's really kind of what we're looking for. And I might check that and you'll see it kind of grays out this option. I'm going to say apply. I'm going to say OK. When I click off of it, here is our grass being added to our site. And that's how we were able to add a brand new material and do some things like that. All right, as far as that goes, that's a large part of the site component as they show. From here you can do site components and add things like trees. So you'll see from your type selector you have different types of trees. So for example, let's go back to the site plan, it'll probably be the best to have it. So whenever we add a site component, here's a 20. So if you look, they have a 20 foot, so that's referring to their span or how big they are in diameter. So like here, if I put a 10 next to it, you'll see it's probably about half as much. So, but there's all kinds of different things that you can do to add some different site components and things like that. If you go to load in family, there's going to be a folder. Some of the folder that you end up having that I like to show students are planting. They've got different shrubs, different types of trees, coniferous or deciduous trees, tropical trees. You can also find some of the other parts that they really like are entourage. So entourage, you can have a car, there's a chair, there's a male and female option, and some other things like that, a semi-truck, a van. So like here, if we load the van in, the kids like to go through and have, students really like to go through and have, some of those different items in there as well. If you wanted to add a sidewalk or something like that, you can use something known as a sub-region. So a sub-region, and then here I'm just going to utilize, so let's say going up to the shed itself, you can draw, again, this is a sketch-based element. I'm just going to kind of primarily draw something like this. And the thing is once you hit cancel a couple times to get off there, if I want to shorten this, you can always click and drag the lines to make things a little bit, kind of manipulate the sketch geometry a little bit more. And that's really kind of what we're looking at. So I'm gonna hit the green check mark. Let me go back to the plan. So there's the sub-region. You can change the material very much like how you do the topo surface. So this one here, let's say this is a concrete walk. We'll do cast in place gray and say OK. So this one we don't need to create a new one. You're going to notice that because of the gable there, You can also edit the boundary right here in the 3D model as well. And that's kind of the neat part. So I'm going to just kind of drag that line, and actually I'm going to snap it right up to the edge of the house. There we go. And so there's some of the different components there. There's the trees and everything in realistic. When you're in shaded, this is what it looks like. So that's really kind of what it looks like. So not quite as interesting as what realistic is, but I would encourage that kids not always run in isometric. The other thing too is kids will also do a lot of things where they're trying to place site components. Sometimes it can be interesting. So they try to place site components like right here, and even then, like, we're not seeing that tree show up right now. So we can see a lot of different cases where they try to place different things, and it's because that graphics, constantly trying to keep up with what's going on. But they really don't see it unless they're in the site plan, and that's really where we want them to be at when they're designing a lot of this. So just a few things there just to kind of go along. This is kind of help prepping them for the affordable home project, but I encourage them always to play around and kind of see what kinds of things that they can do and come up with when they're kind of exploring with Autodesk Revit.